Loop is making engagement ring shopping easier with personal service, expert style advice, customization options, and beautiful inspiration to help you find a ring that fits your style and budget. All Loop rings are hand-set, individually screened by their team of experts and meet the highest quality standards. Finding her ring is a big decision. So here's $100 off your ring to free up dollars. Hit that date night. Go see the flicks. Just go to loopjewelry.com/pages/footballers and use the code footballers. That's loopjewelry.com/pages/footballers, and the code is footballers.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from Draft.com Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome in. Let's go. Now, Mike, you were pumping your fist. What is that? Like a band director?
I'm priming.
Oh, priming. The pump?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. You don't have one of these pumps where you go up and then to the side?
See, I thought you were leading a marching band. Your arm up, your arm out.
76 trombones. No, that's a different life.
That's a different life. He says, very nice. Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers.
Let the big parade.
You've had a few lives.
I have.
You've had a few, you old carny. Wednesday, November 7th, 2018. The Fantasy Footballers back again. Andy, Mike, and Jason. You can find us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. Welcome to the Wednesday show. Today we have a very special segment. We're going to do a playoff primer.
Playoffs?
Yeah. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, no problem.
It's that time of year, right? We're walking into week 10. 4 weeks left for a lot of people before the fantasy playoffs. Weeks 14, 15, 16 for the majority of you intelligent league owners. Those are your playoff weeks. If you're in week 17, contractually we have to show up and give advice for that week, so we're here.
Yeah, we'll be here.
But our spirit
is gone.
Will not be. No, we'll be here.
No, our spirit will not be here. You're 100% right.
Jason rails against it yearly.
Every year that we continue to do this, it gets more and more passionate, more and more important for me because there's just so many examples. I mean, look, all the arguments, everyone out there that wants to argue, and thankfully it's getting fewer and fewer, the number of people that argue for Week 17 championship week, the final week of the NFL season. It's like just – wait till you get to the championship with Todd Gurley this year and see how that works out for you.
Todd Gurley is single-handedly changing the minds of fantasy players across the nation.
No Saints, no Rams, probably no Patriots.
Enjoy it.
And have fun. Yeah. That's not the point of this episode.
No, it's not. Derail.
Yeah,
the point
Jason,
is
you blew it.
We're going to break down each position, who has the best matchups for the playoff weeks.
And who has terrible matchups.
And
which
who has
ones
terrible matchups.
You might want to avoid
and those,
start planning.
Those might matter the most because if you're kind of in the middle, if you got a quarterback that's been performing and you're not benching Pat Mahomes because some of his matchups look questionable during those weeks. But you might make decisions about trade deadlines coming up. You might make decisions about stashing a quarterback that maybe you're streaming all year long. Now it's time to stash one because they have a great matchup. So we're going to get into all of that today and get into the mailbag. So it's going to be a good show. You don't want to miss it. Everybody can make the playoffs, right? You got to win them. And also not everybody can make them.
Yeah. I thought that was a strange statement.
Well, it's harder to win in the playoffs than it is to make the playoffs.
That is true.
Yes.
That's all I got.
News and notes from around the league.
All right, the Packers have placed wide receiver Geronimo Allison on injured reserve.
It's Valdez-Scantling time.
Yeah, Marquez. Last week, I think he earned some more trust from Aaron Rodgers, and he is a flex-worthy guy right now. You want to be a target for Aaron Rodgers. This is exciting news for my dynasty team. At Rap Sheet reporting Sammy Watkins dealing with pain in his foot after Sunday's game, had an MRI. It's not supposed to be serious. However,
it's Sammy Watkins and it's his foot.
Yeah.
Look,
You guys know my two dynasty wideouts, right?
yeah.
AJ
It was
Green.
AJ Green and Sammy Watkins.
How are their feet?
Not doing
TBD.
well.
It's been better.
Yeah.
Here's the positive side of it, and this was Pro Football Doc was talking about. He said as long as it's not related to the surgery and of what he's previously dealt with, then he's going to be perfectly fine. We don't have news yet of is it related to the previous injury.
And if you're counting on him, he could miss this week against Arizona.
I would anticipate him missing this weekend. They don't need him.
Yeah,
to
they
beat
can.
Arizona. They
This
can
is
rest
a good
him.
week if you want to rest Tyreek and Kareem Hunt and Zeus, and they can just rest all of their starters. Take
Like ahead of you
Yeah.
don't have to rest them week 17.
an
Just rest
early
them now.
early bye week. Now you still get the W.
Yeah.
It's just instead of by 24, it's by like 8.
All right, Leonard Fournette, recovering from the hamstring injury, returned to practice on Wednesday. Brooks, has there been an update on whether he was limited or full practice? Do you know?
I do not.
Okay. Well, let us know if you find that out. But right now, I do want to talk about Leonard Fournette for a second. It's been several weeks since we've seen him. In that time, TJ Yeldon, pretty good for fantasy. You also had the addition of Carlos Hyde, made his debut last week, or I guess that would have been
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago in London. So it's been a while since we've seen Leonard Fournette. Fantasy owners that drafted him to be a top 5 guy haven't had that return yet. There's a lot of anticipation, expectation. I'd like to hear what you guys individually think you're going to get from Leonard Fournette when he comes back, what the concerns might be, or whether you're just putting him right back into your lineup.
We can discuss a little bit of what was said before the show. We're in looking at our pump the brakes options, and Andy, I think you suggested, hey, how about Leonard Fournette? And I was very opposed because I think we differ on this. I do not see Leonard Fournette as a pump. I'm very excited for his prospects. So we differ here at this table, but I personally think Leonard Fournette will be very good. They did the right thing after bringing him back too early, having him re-aggravate that hamstring. They did the right thing and kept him out all the way till after the bye week, which was the expected timeline to make sure he's ready to go. During that time, the Jacksonville Jaguars have sucked. Their quarterback has had problems. They've lost games that they were favored and supposed to win. They're now not leading the division that they were supposed to own. They gonna get back to Leonard Fournette. They're going to get, they're coming in division off the bye against Indianapolis. There's not a scary defense. I think Leonard Fournette's going to be a great start, and what you drafted him to be, I think he is going to round out. Now, is there the chance that, you have to factor in, what if he comes back and re-aggravates? Well, that's devastating. He's pretty much done for the year at that point, but they held him out long enough where I believe he'll be full go.
My concerns, and Mike, you can get into what
Sure.
you said before the show. My concerns with him, actually, they didn't even factor re-injury in. I'm concerned about some of the things Mike brought up about the defense, because I don't think Fournette plays cornerback or linebacker.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned about the addition of Carlos Hyde. They traded a pick for him. I think they don't want Leonard Fournette to re-aggravate the injury, and my concern is that they won't give him the work he was getting before when he got frequently injured, because they will rotate Carlos Hyde in for a series every 2 or 3. Mike, you
They
brought
might.
up the defense.
Yeah, the question for me for Leonard Fournette is I'm somewhere in the middle, because I'm like Jason. If I have Fournette, he's going right back in my starting lineup, but it's the expectations, because the defense has been a problem. The quarterback has been a problem. Leonard Fournette solves neither of those problems to me. If Blake Bortles, yes, really. If Blake Bortles is terrible, Leonard Fournette does not make him better. And if the defense is allowing points like 40, huge scores to the Dallas Cowboys, allowing 20 points to the Texans, 24 to the Philadelphia Eagles, they cannot control the game like they did last year. And then the passing down work doesn't go to Fournette, in my estimation. They still go to TJ Yeldon if they're going to have to throw the ball and catch up.
I agree with the passing work not being entirely Fournette's. They're not going to just have TJ Yeldon disappear. But while he doesn't fix Blake Bortles and he doesn't fix whatever's ailing their defense, I believe he certainly helps both of those things. He makes it easier on Blake Bortles, And because they're able to move the ball, keep the offense on the field, we know that helps a defense. So I think
so let me ask.
I guess I just disagree.
The reason I'm bringing it up, I think we all agree if he's on your team and he's going to play, you play him. But you also have an opportunity to potentially cash in on expectations for a player right now. So, Mike, if you had Leonard Fournette, would you trade him for David Johnson right now?
That's an interesting call with David Johnson. We only have really 1 week of the sample of the increased usage in passing downs work. I think if I had Fournette and I waited this long, I would just ride it out.
Jason, would you trade him for David Johnson?
It's so funny because we're on opposite sides of Fournette, where I think Fournette's going to be really good, but I would trade him. And the whole reason I would trade him for David Johnson is 100% injury risk mitigation. If they're both okay, and even if Fournette's a little bit better, you don't have the chance of David Johnson re-aggravating a soft tissue issue the way that you do with Fournette.
Tevin Coleman? Would you rather have Tevin Coleman or Leonard Fournette rest of season?
Fournette.
Okay. Those are the two that jump out to me. I assume you'd rather have Fournette than Jordan Howard.
Yeah, at this point, you've waited. He's back from the bye.
Nick Chubb?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I think – I hate to say this because there are Jacksonville fans out there, and I've been wrong a lot. So congrats to you on that if I'm wrong here. This has the feeling of a broken season for them, of a lost season, trending that direction. The defense is –
It would have to be a very large turnaround to
save it.
To save it,
yeah, exactly. So
you pretty much – to save your season, you essentially have to –
You've got a division you could do it in.
Well, but I mean, you have to run the gauntlet. I mean, they're 3-5. If they're going to save the season, they need to win at least 6 more games?
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens with Fournette. He certainly was great when they were winning and their defense was playing good. Dez Bryant left New Orleans without a contract, but the Saints liked what they saw.
I think they're still negotiating.
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
He seems to try out for teams, and then when his agent gets to the table,
I think he really wants a lot more money than his market value is worth.
Yeah, if I'm Dez Bryant and the Saints say, hey, we're going to work out a contract, you take the league minimum and you play football this year on a team that can go to the Super Bowl.
With a quarterback that can get you a lot of touchdowns, and then you're a free agent at the end of this season, and you go, hey, remember me?
If I'm Dez Bryant, I say, wink, wink, guys. I'm going to pay you. I'm going to give you guys $100,000 if you let me join the team and get regular snaps.
Yeah, there are still reports that they're working on a contract, so we'll see.
I think he will sign there. That's just, I mean, obviously I have no inside information, but from the different things I've read is that contract negotiations are ongoing, and I just don't see why it wouldn't happen. It just makes sense for all parties.
If he signs there, fantasy owners have asked me, Michael Thomas, what happens to him? Nothing.
Correct.
Dez Bryant is a wide receiver 3 at best in that situation. He's a goal line threat. But Michael Thomas doesn't make his hay on the goal line. He makes his hay all over the field to the tune of 10 to 12 catches a week lately. Nick Mullins is going to start at quarterback for the 49ers against the Giants this week.
Hooray!
And then Darren Sproles is back at practice this week, expected to play because what's better than 3 difficult to decide between running back options in Philly than 4?
Abort.
Let's go to 4.
Abort if you've got a Philadelphia Eagle running back.
I think it is a full abort.
Tuck and roll.
All right, before we get into the playoff primer, it is Wednesday, which means O'Reilly. Auto Parts.
Ow!
Pump the brakes with O'Reilly Auto Parts. We're pumping the brakes on, 3 players this week. 2 of our pump the brakes are from the same team.
Yep.
And I'm going to start. Matthew Stafford. I'm afraid to say it, but that Golden Tate fella, that safety blanket, that PPR machine, the Yak Master Golden Tate.
100 receptions over the course of the season.
You can't just trade a guy like that away and expect your quarterback to be in a groove with Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay. So it was a very, very disappointing offensive performance from the Lions. I think you do tear down Matthew Stafford, and they play at Chicago this week. So he is a not start to me. He is
I agree.
a full sit on the bench, put your cap on backwards, and wait a week at least for Matthew Stafford. Let's see what happens. Whether they brought in Bruce Ellington, I think. Is that correct, Brooks? Was it the Lions that brought in Bruce
Yes,
Ellington?
sir.
They're searching. They're hoping. They're wishing. But they don't have Golden Tate. And like Jason said, you lose a 100-reception guy, it's going to hurt. So I'm pumping the brakes on Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, and I'll just come in here in combo with that because I'm pumping the brakes. It gives me a sad face, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pumping the brakes on Kerryon Johnson. The Theo Riddick use was extremely disheartening to see him come in and be the passing downs guy because Kerryon can do that, and I think that he improves the offense if you just commit to him. Then just the way that I see offense in the NFL, if you have a player on the field and you don't know if you're going to throw or run, I think that actually improves your team. But this is the way that they are handling things, and Kerryon Johnson saw his snap count from 81% 2 weeks ago plummet back down to 55%. 55.
No.
Very, very disappointing day. And then on top of that, this isn't me bailing on him for the season, but the matchup against Chicago, it's already a terrible matchup. And if Theo Riddick is going to be that 6-target guy, then Kerryon, you got to lower your expectations.
Oh, Jason's plugging his ears. He doesn't want to hear any of it.
Sorry, man.
Doesn't want to hear any of this.
Is Mike done talking yet?
Carry on.
Yeah, sing it. Yeah, look, this isn't a great matchup for him. I do agree on this week. You got to pump the brakes a little bit there. My pump the brakes, I'm also sticking at the running back position. And coming up to this holiday season, Christmas is right around the corner. You gotta stay away from Krampus.
Yeah.
He'll eat your children. I'm talking about Doug Martin.
Oh, my gosh.
Doug Martin, it's a bad week. Look, Doug Martin, for all the crap we can give him for not being good at football
and
anymore,
eating children.
and eating children at Christmas.
What kind of a monster does that?
Yeah,
Doug.
He can still be relevant. I mean, he, in the 2 weeks where he's been the starter, he's had double-digit carries. He's had serviceable, not great, but not terrible fantasy productions. And so you should you
Like he put on a play.
Yes,
I was going to say production.
Krampus.
But this isn't the week for him.
He's coming to get your kids.
2 weeks ago, Krampus. This isn't the week for Uncle
Put
Krampus.
him in the cellar.
Yes, put him in the cellar.
You know
bolt
what
the doors.
concerned me about this pump the brakes? And
Tell
I
me.
don't think you're well, you could be wrong. What concerned me is they were getting destroyed. And we saw this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I saw way too much Doug Martin in the second half of the game. They were being destroyed. It scared me to death. I was expecting
Because Gruden knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
We've talked about this.
here's the thing. I mean, yes, he was in the game a lot when they were getting destroyed. That game was the whole team, offense and defense, flat out quit. And you can even say coaching. This is just flat out quit in that game. 2 weeks ago, when they were down against the Colts, they didn't mentally give up. They were still playing football, and that's when Jalen Richard had 8 receptions. So now I brought up the fact that was on the road. I don't think that a team mentally quits at home in front of their crowd, especially when you're a Raider and you're in front of Raider Nation. You're not going to turn over and give up, and just let yourself die. And in which case, I think Jalen Richard will be out there catching passes as they try to keep up with the Los Angeles Chargers. I don't like the matchup for Doug Martin from offensive line, defensive line, or from a game script. So if you got both of those guys, which I know some people do, this is a Jalen Richard week, not a Krampus week.
I, as a Jalen Richard owner in a deep dynasty league, hope you're right. I believe in you, Jason. That was Pump the Brakes with O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day. Matthew Stafford, Doug Martin, Kerryon Johnson for this week. And before we jump into the playoff primer, get you ready for the playoffs, the fantasy playoffs, we want to thank today's sponsors, and I want to thank Simply Safe. You've heard us talk about Simply Safe. Maybe you've heard some of their advertising. elsewhere. And here's why I am a big fan of Simply Safe Home Security. By the way, we have it here at the office since day one. Look, they're ready for anything that gets thrown at it. If a storm takes the power out, Simply Safe is ready. If an intruder cuts the phone line, Simply Safe is ready. It should cost an arm and a leg. It doesn't. They're good people. They charge you what's fair. There are no contracts. There are no hidden fees. Look, here's what I love about it. Maybe it's overkill. Maybe you don't think you need it, but you should be ready for every worst-case scenario, and Simply Safe is ready for you. They have it all taken care of. They're recommended everywhere we recommend them, and you've got to check it out. So go today to simplysafe.com/footballers. That is simplysafe.com/footballers, and check it out.
And Foot Clan, Christmas, like I said, is right around the corner with the holidays approaching.
Krampus.
You have the best gift imaginable in Tommy John. Tommy John, look, I'm wearing them right now.
Me too.
I mean, because that's pretty much what we wear every single day. They're revolutionizing, the underwear industry, the clothing industry. They've even got these great new Stay Tucked dress shirts, true game changer. But they're the most comfortable underwear on the planet. Keep you neat. They keep you nestled all in one piece.
Snug as a bug in a rug?
Snug as a bug in a rug. No, there's no wedges. They got a no wedgie guarantee. They're comfortable. The waistbands are great. Look, if you have the package of the store-bought brand, whatever, get it out of your drawer, walk over to your garbage can, lift the lid, place garbage in garbage can, and then go to Tommy John, order, and in a couple days you'll be able to wear underwear again. Give the gift of mind-blowing comfort this holiday season with a limited edition holiday gifts from Tommy John. Plus, save 20% on your first order at TommyJohn.com/footballers. That's TommyJohn.com/footballers. 20% off, no adjustments needed.
All right. Sounds pretty good. Christmas is coming. We sat down last night, went through all the Christmas gifts for the kids, trying to make sure the proportions are correct.
Oh yeah,
that can be a disaster.
Got to have the ratio.
I'll be honest, we kind of messed it up a little bit last year.
You guys are like already almost done with your Christmas shopping, right?
That is correct.
That's insane. That's just
and when
so
to my wife's
diligent.
credit, it's not you guys are. I mean, she's done all of it. It's all about them deals, man. You can get the steals and deals. But we sat down, and last year we gave kids. I mean, they spent the same amount of money, but the older kid, he had like a few things that he couldn't use on Christmas morning as well. And then the other kid had a billion things that could all be used on Christmas morning. So there was that moment, and my wife doesn't want to relive it again. She feels bad.
Those kids not understanding financial worth.
Yeah, it would be easier if it was like one gift each.
That's why you just get them all 10 of those stretchy, sticky hands.
Oh, that's what you do?
Kids love them.
Kids love. You can get those with the quarter machines?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cheapest
all right.
Christmas ever.
Cheapest Christmas ever. This is all we could afford, kids. Let me go play Red Dead on the PS4. Playoff primer time, guys. Let's talk about fantasy playoffs before we get into – we'll do Thursday night matchup after this. But, look, last year's playoff primer episode highlighted a number of players that made huge impacts for fantasy owners in weeks 14 through 16. An example, last year, brought up Jameis Winston. He averaged 317 passing yards, 2 touchdowns per game in weeks 14 through 16. Running backs, we brought up LaShawn McCoy's glorious schedule.
Man, he was great. I mean, everyone remembers Todd Gurley from last year because he carried people to fantasy championships. But watching Shady those last 3 weeks, he was gouging people.
133 yards from scrimmage per game and a touchdown per game. And then Jarvis Landry was the wide receiver 4 during those weeks. Brought him up on the show. Sterling Shepard as well. Antonio Gates. A number of players. Now, playoff matchups, give the disclaimer here, right? They're not everything. They're a piece of the puzzle. That's the show in general, is taking all these different pieces, putting them together, and increasing your odds.
Yeah,
I cannot see the future.
Right. You don't want to overreact.
Yet.
You don't want to see a schedule and say, I want that schedule so bad that I will give up.
I'll trade you for that schedule.
I'll give up a better player for a worse player to have a schedule weeks away. That would be a fantasy football mistake. That's a fallacy that, the schedule is just it's just one piece of the puzzle, like Andy said. you prefer, ideally you want a good player with a great schedule. That's kind of the target, the hope, the dream. But I agree with you, Andy, from earlier. Probably more important than the great schedules are being aware of maybe the players that are on your team that you go, oh, man, I don't love the playoff schedule, because those are the players where
you can make a trade.
Yeah, you can make a trade and kind of protect yourself. And if they're playing well right now, you can usually get good value for them to where you're not downgrading your player. Maybe you upgrade your player. Maybe you sideways trade, but you get a better playoff schedule.
We get a lot of questions about playoff schedules earlier in the season, and it's really not the time to evaluate it, because you need to accumulate as much data on fantasy points against as possible for as long as possible before you make those determinations. So we like to do it now, heading into Week 10, on the brink of trade deadlines for a lot of teams, and when the most amount of data has accumulated. So some of the best quarterback schedules this year, Cam Newton is at the top of that list by a lot.
Yes.
To me. Cam Newton has Cleveland in Week 14, and then at home, New Orleans, Atlanta, divisional games at home, both defenses that are vulnerable to the quarterback position. In fact, New Orleans and Atlanta are the 30th and 31st ranked against the fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, Cam Newton this is why we've at least been highlighting Cam Newton and the Panthers' schedule coming up for a few weeks, because I truly believe that Cam Newton is going to carry a lot of people through the championship.
In my Dynasty League, now I don't have many more, but I had Cam Newton and Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes, what is his schedule during weeks 14 through 16?
Doesn't matter.
Baltimore, Chargers, Seattle.
That's three tough matchups.
Three tough
matchups.
But I would play him.
Yes.
But the question is, would you still play him over that glorious schedule from Cam Newton?
Probably not.
Yeah,
I mean,
probably.
because
did you say probably not?
Probably not.
So that would have been a hard thing for me if Patrick Mahomes carries me through the season. Then I go, I'm going to make the switch now. I'm going to put in Colin Kaepernick. I'm going to bench you, Alex Smith.
Yeah, so you pull a Harbaugh
and put Cam. It would be really hard to lose with Patrick Mahomes on my bench.
Yes.
It certainly would.
But some other great schedules to pay attention to. Jason, did you want to?
I was just going to say, so you took that hardship away from yourself.
I did. I traded Cam Newton away. So, yeah, I'm not starting Alex Smith over Patrick Mahomes. Phillip Rivers has a nice schedule. Cincinnati and Kansas City at home.
Yeah, the championship week is a little rough. Baltimore is a very good.
But is it anymore? Oh, my gosh, Baltimore's falling apart.
Yeah, I still believe. I mean, I
do too.
I realize that they've had a couple of really bad weeks in a row, but the personnel, the coaching, assuming Harbaugh stays, I still believe he's a great coach. I don't love the Baltimore matchup. But the thing is, when you've got a guy like Phillip Rivers, compare Phillip Rivers, preseason, there were two players that I think were in the exact same boat. Long-term veterans, always good at fantasy football, super cheap in the draft. They were two of my higher-end targets. Phillip Rivers, Matthew Stafford, right? They both have the same draft capital, the same, quality of talent and weapons, although not anymore for Stafford. But if you look at Phillip Rivers, Cincinnati in Week 14, then Kansas City Week 15, and then a tough one at Baltimore. Matthew Stafford has Arizona, whose defense has been mighty fine, Buffalo, whose defense has been actually really good.
Yeah, you like to play your DST against Buffalo.
Yeah, and Minnesota, who's one of the best defenses in the league. So that's where if you've got those, let's say you've got Stafford, and you could, do a pivot trade with another piece or something and swing over for Phillip Rivers, a similar tiered guy.
A 2-for-1 type of situation. Yeah. Andrew Luck has an interesting end-of-season schedule, not in the upper echelon. Kirk Cousins as well. At two road games, at Seattle, then Miami, then at Detroit. Cousins has been a little up and down.
Yeah, I think of the guys, so we're highlighting in our doc here, we have four guys that are kind of the worst of the worst for schedules as a whole. Stafford, Luck, Kirk Cousins, Carson Wentz. Stafford and Cousins would be the two guys that I would try to pivot away from. Andrew Luck, I'm going to play him.
Same with Carson Wentz.
And the same with Carson Wentz. They can get it done in a bad matchup. Carson Wentz just added another weapon to his – well, he didn't, but the team added Golden Tate. So I would still be fine playing those two guys. But if you have Stafford or Cousins, I would be looking to make a move.
You're perspiring a little bit.
A little bit.
Oh, man.
So you're a Cousins owner. Are you looking to make a move?
Yeah.
Okay. In the good matchups, and we're gonna take all of this data and we're gonna tweet it out. Is this correct?
Oh yeah.
Have you ever used the tweets?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you'll figure out how to do it.
No.
The one player I'm going to mention that's in the good list, Andy Dalton, has the Chargers and then Oakland and Cleveland.
Are any of those games in prime time?
Yeah, great question. I'm actually
I'm out then.
I'm a little bit concerned.
Because of Green?
Not just because of Green, but because, what I love about Cam Newton, Phillip Rivers' schedule, Big Ben, they're facing teams that are equally talented on the other side of the ball to put that. Not only are they bad in terms of giving up points against the quarterback, but they're also going to keep those games competitive. New England, New Orleans, Atlanta, Kansas City, Baltimore. Andy Dalton plays Oakland and Cleveland. And so there's a little bit more risk to me when you face Oakland. If Mixon runs those first 2 touchdowns in, your defense gets a score, your quarterback may be done for the day. And so I'm just bringing that up as, look, you're weighing that as a factor as well.
So here's a question. Would you rather have Matthew Stafford or Andy Dalton?
Dalton.
Even with the Green injury
Yes.
right now. So you would trade Matthew Stafford
No
for
doubt.
Andy Dalton?
No doubt.
Yeah, I would. And this is a deep league because we have some listeners who say, oh, there's never quarterbacks on the waiver wire. Deep league, if you have an extra bench to stash somebody. Or did you just have the same idea, Jason?
Oh, I know where you're going. Absolutely.
Joe?
No.
Lamar?
The backup to Joe Flacco. Lamar Jackson.
Yep. It's funny. I thought you were going Joe, and I was going to correct you with Lamar Jackson.
Joe Flacco certainly, if he is still the starting quarterback for the team, but the whispers in the bushes are starting to get louder in Baltimore of, like you said, maybe Harbaugh is going to see the door. Maybe Flacco's going to be out. Harbaugh's had to come out and say, no, Flacco's still our guy. But Week 14, Kansas City. Week 15, Tampa Bay. Week 16, the Los Angeles Chargers, plus Lamar Jackson and his rushing, getting you the Tebow points, the Cam Newton points. Just saying, if no one is available and you can hold on to them,
look,
very interesting. Could be huge.
I don't think that Lamar Jackson will start these games. I think Joe Flacco, because of the contract situation, will be starting these games. But if Lamar Jackson is the starter, he will win fantasy championships for people. Whoever gets him first, if he's the starter, with the schedule of at Kansas City, Tampa Bay, and the Los Angeles Chargers, with his ability to rush the ball like no one, Cam is the only one that can rush the ball as well as Lamar Jackson, albeit in completely different styles. He'll be a fantasy beast during those championship
very
weeks.
possible.
All right, turning the page to the best running back schedules for the fantasy football playoffs. Let's turn first to David Johnson. David Johnson gets to face the 24th, 31st, and 15th ranked run defenses, Detroit, Atlanta, Los Angeles, 2 of those 3 games at home. Other ones that obviously jump off the page, Mike, you brought up all Carolina Panthers, but Christian McCaffrey faces Cleveland, New Orleans, Atlanta. Joe Mixon, has a great schedule, especially if you snag that bye week. If you're a league that has a bye week in Week 14 or you get through Week 14, he faces Oakland and Cleveland in Weeks 15 and 16. The Phillip Lindsay, Royce Freeman situation could be real good for Weeks 15 and 16 as well. San Francisco, Cleveland, Oakland. And then Tevin Coleman, Melvin Gordon, Kareem Hunt have some of the better running back schedules too. What stands out to you from that group?
Sure. The guys I would highlight would be David Johnson. And Baltimore and Carolina are good all around. Like ancillary
all players.
Like pieces from that offense, like John Brown, Devin Funchess, secondary options that you can actually get cheap. Maybe they become interesting because you want them for a flex play. But David Johnson, Collins, the running backs from Denver, and then maybe Tevin Coleman. Those guys are interesting because their schedules are great, and I think you can actually acquire them. Trading for Joe Mixon is going to be pretty close to impossible. Melvin Gordon trading for him will literally be impossible. So, and same for Christian McCaffrey. So that's why you got to highlight these guys. You could actually go out and get them if you're trying to buy into the schedule.
Yeah, I agree. I would be happy with all of the aforementioned players. Now, I'm not super high on the Baltimore situation, especially trying to predict weeks 14, 15, 16 when it comes to if you were to go out and trade for Alex Collins right now, is he still
carries the
getting
risk.
14 carries in those
I feel
weeks?
pretty strongly he will. But, yeah, there is a little bit of risk.
And again, I'll bring up, if you didn't hear a couple shows ago, I am still a huge believer. Like, if you – even maybe if you're not – and this isn't for every
We're
team.
not talking about tight ends yet, Jason.
Oh, stop it. No, in C.J. Anderson.
Okay.
If you are the Christian McCaffrey owner to have that C.J. Anderson is worthless. He's not going to do anything unless there's an unfortunate, devastating injury to Christian McCaffrey. But I am a complete believer that if he'd be another championship-winning asset in those weeks with fresh legs, pull a Tim Hightower, come in and be a true dominant player.
It's interesting that Todd Gurley, Alvin Kamara have two of the hardest schedules for fantasy running backs.
Don't care.
Kamara at Carolina and Pittsburgh in weeks 15, 16. That is the 6th-ranked and 1st-ranked run D. And then at Chicago, at Philly for weeks 14 and 15 for Todd Gurley. Two difficult matchups as well. Gurley gets Arizona in week 16, which is championship week. And Arizona has yet to set their eyes on a running back, much less tackle one. And Alvin Kamara has a beautiful week 14 against Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Kareem Hunt's schedule is difficult as well, but like
these
we
are
said,
guys you
this
don't
is
debate.
a piece of the puzzle. It doesn't matter.
But
yes,
San Francisco and Houston. Matt Breida has a very difficult end of season. Like we kind of, Raheem Mostert's out now. Alfred Morris is irrelevant. Matt Breida's been hurt, but we all said, look, when he's out there, he's the guy. This looks like an intimidating schedule. Is he a pivot guy?
Yes, I would try to pivot away from him if I could. Denver, week 14, that's fine. But then Seattle and Chicago, championship week against Chicago, that would be really, really crappy to have made it all the way to the title game and then have to stare that matchup in the face with your RB2. So if you could make the move, I would try to do that.
Here's another name that I think would be a little bit interesting because he has to be a second half of the year player if he's going to do something. But Dalvin Cook has Seattle, not a good matchup in that week 14. But like if you've got the bye, which if you've got the bye, you're the type of team that can trade for a Dalvin Cook from a team that was losing because they had Dalvin Cook. Try to nab him now, and he's got Miami, Detroit. Two of the worst run defenses for fantasy points given up in the championship and the
semis.
The semis. So I like, if he's healthy, which his 70-yard run looked pretty healthy this last week.
Yeah, he was. I think I saw from Next Gen he was clocked as that's the fastest run of the year.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's decently healthy. We'll post all the running backs so you can break it down, look at your roster. See what the schedules look like compared to the fantasy points allowed by their opponents. At the wide receiver position, you brought up Carolina. They've got the nice matchup.
They'll be highlighted in all of these sections.
But interestingly enough, Dallas, the Chargers, Green Bay, all very nice schedules. So, look, you've got Geronimo Allison to IR. Marquez Valdez-Scantling could be a target, right? Like he's already a waiver target.
Yeah.
Maybe you picked him up today.
Yeah.
Well, take comfort. Atlanta, Chicago, New York. The Jets for the final 3 games of the season. And then Keenan Allen gets to play Cincinnati, Kansas City, and then Baltimore in week 16. But, look, you got to get to the championship game, and he's got a juicy schedule. Amari Cooper, are you interested? Philly,
I am
Indianapolis, Tampa.
Yeah, a little bit I am. Because here's the problem.
Can't quit you.
Well, here's the problem for Amari Cooper. I mean, it's chicken and egg situation here where he just would never get targets, and you think, okay, well, number one wide receiver should always get targets regardless. I mean, he can get open. He struggled with drops. There was so much weird stuff going on in Oakland. But the Cowboys are clearly going to feature him with the first round pick given up to acquire him. His first game in the system, they went to him. Dak is forcing things to him in double coverage, but they're gonna go to him. And two really strong matchups, and the one that's not the strongest is the Colts. And I don't care. Like I'll still play him against the Colts and be perfectly fine with that. So yes, Amari Cooper he's interesting.
So here's the thing.
Uh-oh.
With Amari Cooper, my mind knows to be careful.
But your body?
My mind's telling me no.
Oh.
But my body.
My
body's telling me yes.
It's really one of those like I'm like I know not to do this. Jason, don't do this. Don't you buy in.
This is a fool me thrice.
It feels, but the thing is he was running great routes as he is known to do. He was getting separation. He got a few targets, got a touchdown. As the report builds with this schedule, I mean, I'm kind of liking Amari Cooper. I don't know to trust my mind or my body.
Oh my goodness. I would trust your mind.
Say
with Amari Cooper.
Yeah, your body talked you into back-to-back days of Raising Cane's, Jason.
Ooh, my body rejected that.
And then your body Man, this has been a long time.
It has been a little while. How many consecutive fast food meals did you consume?
Upwards of, I don't know, 20. What? I mean, look, my body. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
All right. Wide receivers with difficult playoff matchups. Look, it doesn't look worse than it does for T.Y. Hilton. Houston, Dallas, New York. That is the 7th, 3rd, and 5th ranked. He has not gotten on the, he has not given you those special performances this year yet. Are you worried about T.Y. Hilton? Would you look at what you can get for him if you could pivot away from him somewhere else?
I would not.
You would not?
No, I'm going to trust in T.Y.
He's a
Hilton.
must start then.
Yes.
Trust in T.Y.
Absolutely. Early on in the season, he was putting up good points. Then he dealt with the injuries. He's still trying to get back. And I think by the fantasy playoffs, T.Y. Hilton and Andrew Luck will be firing on all cylinders. I talked about Andrew Luck's not a guy I'm trying to pivot away from. I'm not going to pivot away from his number one weapon then.
Yeah, I tend to agree there too. And I think the Dallas-New York Giants matchups, while they have been good at not giving up fantasy points to the wide receivers, I think by the end of the year and in those specific games, I think T.Y. will be just fine in those matchups. Here's a guy I want to talk about because this might surprise you guys. I mean, I chose not to, but I almost made him my pump the brakes this week, and it's Alshon Jeffrey.
Interesting.
Alshon Jeffrey has been fantastic. He's been getting more targets than what we're used to. Last year when he was successful, it was on the back of the touchdowns and the efficiency. He wasn't, just a complete target hog. That's Zach Ertz. With the addition now of Golden Tate, Zach Ertz, you've got a lot of different weapons. This is great for Carson Wentz beating this tough schedule. But Alshon Jeffrey with Dallas, the Rams, the Texans in those fantasy championship weeks, do you guys have any worries that the combination of more targets, bad schedule, could make Alshon a disappointing fantasy playoff?
I do. I do have concerns. I have concerns he'll become more TD dependent as the season goes on. That would be my one concern. And if you roll the dice with a guy that is more prone to 60 reception seasons, then there's some risk there.
I think the risk would be you got to walk through, will he be shadowed by any elite quarterback or cornerbacks? Because the 2 weeks that were rough for Alshon Jeffrey against Minnesota, 2 for 39, the roads were closed. Xavier Rhodes absolutely shut him down. And then this past, 2 weeks ago, he got the Jalen Ramsey experience, 4 for 35. So that's what I'm taking a look at. So Dallas.
Well, Dallas, you've got
Jones is great. He doesn't shadow though. So as long as they're unique with their play calling, they can get him open. The Rams,
the Rams should be healthier by then.
Yeah,
I think
the question will
Aqib
be Talib.
There was a report this morning, Aqib Talib expected back after the bye in Week 13.
Right, so this would be his second week back if that holds up. So that defense could be much better. And then Houston that last week. Look, I'm not saying you must sell Alshon Jeffrey right now by any means. He's going to be very valuable. But I almost pumped the brakes in part because he is playing Dallas on a very low over-under game. In the first game, we've seen, when these wide receivers so far, 2 for 2, when they've been traded for mid-season, they try to come in and pump a couple early targets to him, make sure they know we want you involved. So Alshon's got great value right now, right? I mean, he's been stellar. I feel like you could trade and maybe upgrade, do a package deal, a 2 for 1. And
I'm pretty confident in him moving forward.
And capitalize. So
where are you at, Andy?
On Alshon, would you be willing to trade him?
Split it.
I'd be willing to trade Alshon right now. I think he's at peak value.
Good.
Maybe one of the more important positions to turn to here, tight end, because predictability, teams giving up points to tight ends. If you're in that middle tier, right, you're not a Kittle, Ertz, Kelsey, Gronk. Yes, I still said Gronk. Owner, you're looking to find. I mean, I don't know what I'd be looking for more.
Yeah.
To help differentiate a middling tier guy like a David Njoku. If I'm looking at Njoku or Jordan Reed or O.J. Howard or maybe not O.J. Howard. O.J. Howard's probably moved himself up a little bit. But in the middle tiers, I'm looking at playoff schedule. Ben Watson has one of the best playoff schedules I've seen in quite some time. Here's the rank of his opponents in terms of fantasy points given up to the tight end position. 31st, 32nd, 29th. For those final 3 weeks. Tampa, Carolina, Pittsburgh. Jared Cook has a very favorable schedule. David Njoku has a very favorable schedule. And yes, Rob Gronkowski does as well, Vance McDonald. Are you targeting these players?
Yeah, I mean, Ben Watson is a great guy to target because you don't have to trade for him. You just go sign him, pick him up. And the thing is if he's on a roster right now, which he very well might be, at a good couple of weeks and a good schedule, just keep doing speaking of which, today is Wednesday, so drop it like it's hot.
Oh.
Check your waiver wire for who was dropped as the waivers went through. Don't just look at who got the guys you wanted, but who did they stupidly let go of? And from now to the end of the season, Ben Watson will hit every waiver wire because I don't think he's going to be one of those weekly must starts. He'll have a bad matchup and someone will pivot, and you could hold on to him. I would rather have Ben Watson than a lot of other of that middle tier of tight end with that kind of a schedule and what he's been doing. And I love Ben Watson. Just a good guy.
And I think this is an official opportunity to say,
Oh, what's happening?
It's been, I was going to say a good run, but it really hasn't been a good run. It's been a really irritating run. Sure, one of our original rules of this show was related to it.
Got to break the rules here.
But I'm breaking up officially with Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed, I said earlier this week, he's not even the best tight end on his team right now. You can't trust him. And he faces one of the worst playoff schedules, including at Jacksonville, 8th against tight end, and at Tennessee, the number 1 against fantasy tight end. It's time to say goodbye. It's time to move on.
He's been so disappointing. I mean, yeah, I would rather play on a weekly basis Ben Watson, Jared Cook, and Njoku, those guys, than Jordan Reed, who was drafted to – here's the thing with Jordan Reed that everybody thought. If he was able to remain healthy, I mean, this was the original rule, he's one of the best. His upside is massive. But Alex Smith, without Andy Reid, went right back to being Alex Smith.
Yes.
Yeah, he did. Vanilla ice cream. I expected more from him this last week against Atlanta. Didn't get it.
He gave you 300 yards.
He did all right.
Yeah.
He did enough. I mean, vanilla ice cream is not a bad thing. It's just needs some,
Pick
some
two things to put
fudge
on top of vanilla ice cream.
I would
You
pick
get two.
Tyreek Hill and I would pick Tyreek Hill and
Kareem
Travis Kelce.
Yes.
I was okay. We'll move on. Goodness.
Thursday Night Breakdown.
You guys excited for this one? The 6-2 Panthers take on the 5-2-1 Steelers. Steelers are 4-point favorites, 51.5-point over/under.
All right. Yes, I am. I'm
very much.
Since we're coming off of the Dallas-Tennessee primetime matchup, I do need a palate cleanser. So, yes, I'm very excited for this.
I love that this game is
parsley
in Pittsburgh. I mean,
lemon sorbet.
The fact that Big Ben is at home in front of the Steelers crowd in prime time makes me so confident that this will be a high-scoring affair, that he will get the job done, and Cam Newton, with his ability to rush on the road, I love the matchup for almost everybody involved. I mean, both teams on paper are great against the run, and that doesn't matter because you're talking about James Conner and Christian McCaffrey. Must start every week. And then all the other positions on both sides of the field have pretty juicy matchups here. So, I mean, this is a light 'em up. And whenever you can have a Thursday night football game where you get players, there's an advantage. I mean, we've talked about that in the past. You get to know before –
just a knowledge advantage.
Before Sunday, are you in a hole? Are you in a lead? Do you need to play it safe? Do you need to swing for the fences? There's something nice about being able to plug in Devin Funchess and, of course, take him out of your flex and move him into the wide receiver position because that gives you more flexibility come Sunday. And Devin Funchess is a perfect example because if he finishes with 2 touchdowns and 100 yards, that's a realistic outcome. If he finishes with 3 receptions,
chance of that.
3 receptions and 22 yards, there's a percentage, that could happen too, and you get the knowledge going into Sunday of how, you've got a head start on knowledge.
Yeah. I know you guys scoff every time I bring it up, but I would expect Joe Hayden to be very much on Devin Funchess. That's fine.
Scoff.
How'd John Brown do against Joe Hayden?
Poorly.
Against Joe Hayden.
Which time?
I like it.
No, this last week, Joe Hayden shadowed John Brown.
I know. It was bad. It was bad for John Brown.
That's what I'm saying. Joe
yeah,
Hayden
you love Joe Hayden. I get it.
Yeah, he's been playing incredible. Devin Funchess will not have a good game because of Joe Hayden. I stand by it.
He also, in his defense, or in Joe Hayden, not giving the credit to Joe Hayden, he could have a bad game due to Devin Funchess. It is possible.
When you combine Funchess with Hayden.
All right,
no,
so
that's fine. I don't have any. If I were a fantasy owner counting on Devin Funchess on a week-to-week basis,
I would be sad.
I would not be happy.
No, but you'd want him on Thursday.
You would.
That's my point, is because his range of outcomes is so wide.
If you were going to play him, you'd want to.
If you're going to play Devin Funchess, better to have it be on a Thursday.
Is Greg Olsen a top 5 tight end rest of the season?
Yes. I mean, the only issue I have with Greg Olsen is that he could re-injure the foot, which that would obviously take him out of top 5.
Yeah, I don't know my top 5 off the top of my head, but he's a great play this week. The Steelers' defense ranked 29th against the position. I'm all about it. But interestingly enough, the Panthers are somehow 32nd against the position, or 32nd best, as we call them on this show. So are you interested in Vance McDonald?
I'm interested in the fact that he ran, I think, the most routes of any tight end last week, and it just didn't turn into production to the degree that you'd want. I'm always kind of, when I am grabbing a streaming tight end or somebody that I'm looking to explode, he's always in the corner of my eye.
Let me ask this question then.
I didn't like seeing Jesse James fly down the sideline for a catch.
So Vance McDonald, after the really strange 2 weeks ago, 38% of the snaps, he went back to his normal mid-60 range. What's your confidence level in Gronk for this weekend? Because
to play?
Yes.
Very little.
So would you – let's say Ben Watson is not available. You missed out on Uzama in the great tight end pickups.
Would you jump the gun on Thursday?
That's what I'm getting to.
Yes, I would. I would play Vance McDonald and bet on Gronk being out as of Wednesday, November 7th.
Wednesday morning.
In the morning. Like if I get a report that Gronk was, practicing
in full tomorrow on Thursday, then
yeah,
don't.
I would be waiting but if I don't hear anything, I'm ear to the ground. I'm trying to find out everything I can about Gronk, but knowing that they have the bye next week.
But I think that's a realistic situation that people could be facing.
People kind of had to face it last week with Gronk in the Sunday night game and having to play the Sunday morning tight ends. This is a little worse than that.
Yes.
But I think Vance is good enough. Like, what's funny is Mike was forced into playing Ben Watson last week over Gronk. He got a better week than
It
Gronk.
worked out.
Better week than Gronk's given him all year.
It definitely worked out.
You're no longer – I don't think right now you're risking, 3 points to 25 points. Lately it's been like, are you going to get 10 from Gronk?
Yeah.
I think the risk is worth
Jason, how are you feeling about your star, Juju Smith-Schuster?
He's just I absolutely love Juju Smith-Schuster. I realize that he's had a couple of down games. If I could trade for Juju Smith-Schuster right now, I would do it in a heartbeat. If you look at similar to what Andy was just saying on Vance McDonald, right? You can't just look at the results. The results are the only thing that matters for winning fantasy, but in predicting fantasy, you have to look at the process. You have to look at, okay, was he on the field? Was he getting the right targets? Juju is near the top of the league in red zone targets. When they get down there, they're looking his way. Juju has been unbelievable on the predictive analytics that matter. Even still, the star is firmly in the north.
in the north.
This is the North Star.
Polaris?
Up is north?
No, I was making a North Star reference.
And down is south. Yeah.
Down is south. I mean, come on, every idiot knows this.
Now,
if you dig, you're going south.
If you
dig a hole, you go 6 feet south.
I just want this voice to stay around. I want to be quiet and let it happen. Now, I was going to make Brooks edit it in because I completely forgot to mention it. Maybe one of the most important things to pay attention to. But we didn't talk team defenses in the playoff primer. So I'm going to give you that as we close out the show. And I'm not even going to make Brooks do extra work.
Wait.
We're just working it in.
Wait. Before we go back, I really do want your guys' opinion on DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel because this matchup says that someone's going to pop.
No, thanks. Nah.
It was the usage of DJ Moore was unbelievably
I don't want to chase
upsetting.
I don't want to chase what Curtis Samuel did.
No, I would not.
Clearly you do.
I'm tempted because Torrey Smith is out. Curtis Samuel is a burner, and this is a matchup that says he's got a chance at one of those deep bombs.
DJ Moore played the most snaps of his career last week. The targets just didn't go to him.
If you had to pick one of those two, you'd go DJ.
If I'm chasing one of those, I'm going with DJ Moore.
That's fair. I think that's all you can say. It's all relative to what you have on your roster comparatively. But if I had to play any of the three, I would play DJ Moore.
Okay.
Between
I just
Funchess, Curtis Samuel,
wanted to bring it up
because
I think those are players that people might be grossly staring at, and they need to know.
Yeah.
Can I properly go back in time now? The best defensive schedules for weeks 14 through 16 as of right now look like this. Denver plays San Francisco, Cleveland, and Oakland. Detroit plays Arizona, Buffalo, Minnesota, Tennessee, Jacksonville, New York, and Washington. Washington faces the Giants, Jacksonville, and Tennessee, and then Jacksonville has a pretty good defense. Now, I like to try to get the combo, right? A defense that I believe has at least elite-level talent, playmaking ability, combined with the schedule. I'm not just going to go on schedule alone. Look, Detroit's playing Arizona, Buffalo.
They are on the road.
They're on the road. They're not a great defense.
Yeah, I agree. They are not. I don't think they're a great defense, but when you're looking at the matchup, the thing I want to know is who is the quarterback and how are they playing. And so I would still be very comfortable playing Detroit against Arizona and Buffalo.
Yeah, and I totally agree. They have not been a talented defense, but Ziggy Ansah has been out.
Right.
And they just traded for Snacks Harrison. Those are two really good defensive players that they have not had while they've stunk.
Well, I mean, Snacks
Based on the information we have now, though,
1 week.
And the performances we have now and the stashing you're doing now, I have a lot more confidence in the sack machine like Denver.
Sure, yeah, I would rather have Denver
is a
than
better
Detroit.
target than Detroit is for me. Who else stands out to you?
The New England Patriots. I mean, if you're just playing the
if you can get the Pats for championship weekend, then And the Pats actually have a couple decent matchups on
It's
the way.
Miami. So you don't want their Week 15. Week 15 is Pittsburgh. That's where you go, okay, pivot off for that one
Pivot.
week. But the sandwich, I mean, you start with Miami and then playoff championship at home
Yes.
against Buffalo and probably a quarterback that, I don't know, maybe it's Josh Allen by that time.
Should
One
be.
would hope.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, just figure out, take a look who's playing the Jets or the Raiders. And
The
then,
Raiders are really the target I'm looking at.
Sure.
So that's
that
one of
would
my
be
top
Denver
ones.
championship week.
Yeah. And I think Cincinnati plays them the week before that or 2 weeks before that. And so I'm willing to stash two defenses to stack them. I want to get through the playoffs with confidence. That's why I know Detroit's playing at Arizona, at Buffalo. I'm staying away from them. They're from fantasy points produced perspective, they're the 25th ranked defense. That's not good enough for me.
Yeah, the Bengals, I'm glad you brought them up because if they're a perfect bye week stash or just a playoff stash, but beginning of playoffs week 1, you don't love them. They're on the road against the Chargers. Don't play them. But then their week 15 and 16 are as good as anybody's.
Is it Cleveland, Oakland?
It's Oakland, Cleveland, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then on the other side of the coin is a lot of people have been counting on the Chicago defense. You'll have Khalil Mack back by then. But week 14 and 15,
Oh, gross.
they face the Rams and the Packers. You can't
play
you
them.
can't start them those
No,
weeks.
you cannot play.
You can hold them on your bench for week 16, championship week against the 49ers, though.
Yep, I would.
Chargers defense been pretty good. You can't play them, I don't think.
No.
Cincinnati, Kansas City.
Carolina's defense has been pretty good, but the semis and championship,
Yeah,
the
no, thank
Saints and
you.
the Falcons, no thank you.
And then Baltimore. Kansas City in week 14, you can't do it. Probably can't do it against Tampa Bay in week 15,
Probably
no matter
can't
what
do it
quarterback
against the
there is.
Chargers in week 16. So
So
that's
Baltimore punt them.
yeah.
And then
You don't have to punt them now, but just know that you need – if you are rolling with Baltimore, you need to have that defense stash for the playoffs.
yeah. So we'll post all the defenses so you can look at it as well. All these will be on Twitter at the FF Ballers. And hopefully this breakdown helps you out as you plan. This is our job is to provide you as much information as we can, and your job is to make decisions based on the context of your league, what's on the free agent wire, and what you need.
Your job is to win the championship, to bring it home.
Yeah. And then report back.
Yeah, definitely report back.
That is it for today's episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Make sure you check out our community at jointhefoot.com and check out draft.com/ballers if you want to play some DFS this weekend. Thank you for listening and supporting. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers.